What's going on, guys? Dan from SSG bringing you a little bit of a different video this time. We have a top 8 analysis or breakdown of the RBET event that just passed this weekend. I thought I'd bring you a little bit of a different video because there's a lot of interesting stuff that made top 8. I think there's a lot to talk about at this event, but also I think it's just really important. There's a lot of people behind the scenes doing a lot of work for the Edison community, and these events are really what brings life to the Edison community right now. We have E3 Yugioh putting in a bunch of work. We have Edison Format Library. We have Edison Format.com. A lot of resources available to players, and I think it's really important just to sort of be involved and talk about these things and give everyone a little bit of a shout out. And let's just get right into the analysis here. So our first top 8 deck list in 7th place. We have a Frog Monarch deck here with 3 copies of Junk Synchron. Really awesome list here. I remember seeing like 1 or 2 of these being played way back in the day as sort of like a tech for easy access to Catastrophe, but all 3 copies here. I mean, this is a really interesting take on the Frog Monarch deck list. I like how he has 3 copies of Battle Fader to combo with the Junk Synchron, just giving you access to a number of different levels. Battle Fader, not as popular anymore in these Frog Monarch decks, but it just makes it so that the Blackwing decks aren't going to just run you over and OTK you, just do all these really nasty things, kill you from 6,000. That seems to be really common right now. And I also like how you get to play Darkarm Dragon in this deck, just having multiple darks with the Junk Synchrons. You even have a tech to Jinzo in here, which is fairly interesting. Jinzo seems to be a powerful choice. I love Dark Dust Spirit. Dark Dust Spirit is always my go-to tribute summon monster after the 3 copies of Caius and the 3 copies of Ryza, as it just applies a lot of pressure to your opponent and can just wipe away boards that this deck has a hard time dealing with, things like Titanial plus multiple fluff tokens. You could have a hard time dealing with things that stop targeting. But overall, I just like this deck list. I even like the Zaborg. He's running a lot of tribute monsters, and I really don't mind it. You have the traditional 6 here, the Caius' Ryza, then you have Dark Dust Spirit 7, Jinzo 8, and the Zaborg 9. So a lot of tribute monsters. Tragodia, Gores. We have triple Dupe Frog. I wonder why we went with 3 Dupe Frogs. I usually just go with 2 in the majority of my list, but I think it's just to combo with the Junk Synchron, make those as consistent as possible. And yeah, pretty awesome deck here. Brain Control must be amazing in this deck, taking their monsters and synchroning with them. I like the 1 copy of Soul Exchange. I like that you can still fit into upstarts. Trap cards, just regular removal. You know, you have the 1 Wing Blast. I might have went with 2 over the copy of Mirror Force, but it seemed to work out well for him. Of course, you have the obligatory Trap Dust Shoot. You gotta run Dust Shoot. We have the 3 Vanity Fiends on the side, which is very standard for all these Frog Monarch based decks. Yeah, I like this deck a lot. You'll see a tech I like to play a lot, Burial, sort of saving his Treeborn Frog from being banished by DD Crow in the standby phase. Can do some pretty sweet tricks there. I also like the 2 copies of Soul Exchange on the side. I always try to go up to 3 Soul Exchange when I put the Vanity Fiends into my main deck. So very, very strong here. I love the copies of Catastrophe, just easy access with the 2 Junk Synchrons. There's a lot to like about this deck, and the only thing I consider is maybe adding an Allure of Darkness. You have quite a few darks here. I think Battle Fader can clog a little bit. Maybe you have an extra copy of Caius or a dead Junk Synchron in the early turns of the game, but overall, I like that you get to play Darkarm. This deck has a lot of high upside, and come on, I mean, Junk Synchron is just one of the awesome cards you can get to play, so I like this list a lot. I like you have access to Junk Archer and Junk Warrior as well. So pretty awesome list here. And another 7th place deck list, we have a Volcanic Quickdraw deck. So haven't seen one of these in a while, performing well online, but seems pretty awesome. Immediately what points out to me the 1 tech copy of Plasma, which is just awesome at shutting down these dupe lock boards that everyone's trying to make. Just kind of beats over everything, and just really interesting there. Of course, you have to run Scapegoat to try and support that, but I think, you know, Blaze Accelerator is fairly well positioned right now. Just I think keeping the Blackwing monsters clear is really important, and just sort of having that recurring removal is very strong. Of course, you get to play 3 Avarice in a build like this, which is always just a very high payoff. I like the one Battle Fader, just kind of a get you card. They don't really see it coming. Interesting that there's no Lone Fire Blossoms or Titania on the main board. I like them in the side though. Just pretty interesting take here. I guess you're going to side them in potentially going first in a lot of matchups, but also against things like Monarchs. Like I mentioned previously in the last deck list, that Titania is a very hard card to deal with when you just have a bunch of Caiuses and Rises in your deck, so I could see that coming in those spots. I like the 2 Book of Moons comboing with the Rykos. Card Trooper really strong. 2 Debris, Plasma, awesome. Overall, just like solid list. 2 Royal Decrees, another thing to talk about, just shutting off things like Icarus Attack, Royal Oppression, Skill Drain, things like that. Just allow your things to resolve, play a grindy game with your opponent, and just get that draw where you're gaining card advantage over and over. Every time you discard a shell with the Draw Warrior, then you're going to be able to just get a +1 and just keep basically draw an additional card every turn. So very solid list here. Sideboard looks pretty standard other than the Lone Fire package down here, which I do like a lot in the sideboard. I like having access to it, at least in games 2 and 3. And one thing I always like to say is you play more decks sideboarded than you do mainboarded. So these will come in quite often, I imagine. And I like the 3 pulling the rugs, just all 3, just get those Kaises out of here. Extra Duck looks pretty standard. 3 Draw Warrior. I like the 2 Shorbur Warrior. I think people don't summon this card enough. I've been trying to add a second one into a lot of my quick draw lists, and overall just like this list a lot. And let's go on to the next one. We have a 5th place list here. It looks like Diva Zombies. Very standard. The first thing I notice, and which I like a lot, is the 2 copies of Tomato and 2 copies of Pyramid Turtle. I think the main thing about this deck is, like, if you can just resolve a Goblin Zombie, if you have a Goblin Zombie in play on the start of your turn, you can just do some really nasty things. And I don't know why people don't play more copies of these recruiters here. I think 2 and 2 is like basically should be standard, just fetching out the powerful monsters in your deck and really trying to go off with Diva. He also has Sangan, of course, to go fetch out things he needs. Tragodia, really interesting. There's no Wing Blast in this deck, so I think Tragodia is going to be fairly awesome at protecting you and having a high hand count as well. Just a really big monster that your opponent has to deal with, and it's going to be hard for them to deal with. I like Gale, interesting tech card here. I think the card is very powerful in a vacuum, and summoning into level 7 synchros, just having more access to Black Rose in these zombie decks is definitely got to be paying dividends for this deck list here. I like the 3 Caius because of the 2 Tomato and 2 Pyramid Turtle. You also have 2 Book of Life and the 1 Brain Control to turn on the Caius. And interesting tech Enemy Controller as well. Enemy Controller, really, really interesting card here. I think that it reminds me a little bit of the Enemy Controllers in like the Tengu plant decks from the format after this. Just as long as you can keep your Goblin Zombies floating and sacking those to Enemy Controller, you're going to be doing some really, really disgusting things. And the zombie engine is similar to the plant engine of formats of later than this. So overall, very good. I like the double dust in the trap lineup here. Just getting them out of the way, go for Diva combos, and just kill your opponent. Just very, very strong there. 1 Bottomless, interesting. Just 1. I like it. I think you don't necessarily have to have 2. I do like 2 right now, since Blackwing seems to be very strong in the metagame. But overall, I like what we got going on here. 2 Sirokkos in the sideboard to go against those Blackwings. The second copy of Bottomless. 2 Light Mirrors, interesting choice there. Getting those Light Sworns out of there. 2 Deep Prisons. I like Deep Prison a lot right now. Thunder Kings. I wonder what comes out when you're putting those Thunder Kings in, but I think Thunder King's just a strong card that's a little bit underplayed. Not the best in the meta right now, but I think it's just a fine card that should be played a little bit more and respected a little bit more than it actually is. Of course, Cyber Dragon, DD Crow. Yeah, I like this list a lot. It looks very solid. Looks like you're going to be comboing quite a bit. You're going to search out your Devo with Sangan. You're going to have a floating Goblin Zombie fairly often. whether it be sacking it for Caius or syncering with Gale or Diva. So very strong here. I like the Trag a lot in the main board. Awesome, awesome build. We go on to another zombie list, 5th place, and a 41 card list with 3 copies of DD Crow in the main. That's what's sticking out to me right now. Just very, very strong. I think that it's a little, you have to commit heavy to go all 3 DD Crows, but I guess you're playing a little bit more of a controlling list. I think one thing that could conflict a little bit is the 2 copies of Wing Blast and 3 DD Crow. You have like you have very specific ways to target things, right? Whether it be targeting the best thing they have with Wing Blast, putting it back to the top, but also DD Crow specifically targeting out various matchups. But I think that if you draw these cards in combination, whether it be like 3 copies of like any of these 5 cards in your hand at once, your hand can be extremely, extremely gassed and taxed. That like even if you're messing up their game plan, you might be down like a minimum of 1 card, just going low on resources to interact with what they're trying to do. But I mean, I think DD Crow is just an awesome tech. I understand why you would go 3 instead of just 2. You just want access to it and hope you get the matchups that it's very good in. Other than that, I mean, the 3 Caius, I see 2 Tomato here as well as the 2 Permaturtle, so maybe that's becoming a little bit more of a standard. I like the 3 Diva and the Spine Gilman to combo with the Tomatoes and the turtles, just getting into that Goblin Zombie, getting into those OTKs. 2 Bottomless, 1 Dust, of course, Powerful Return. The rest of it's fairly standard. I like Tragodia again here. Electric Virus, really interesting choice. Probably just trying to OTK the opponent. This deck looks like a little bit more like OTK oriented or combo oriented because of the triple Diva. So I like the Electric Virus, just trying to kill those dragon decks, get them out of there. 3 Dig Prison on the side. Another player playing multiple copies of Light Imprisoning, and 2 Starlight Road as well. High rolling on that card, I think. But overall, very strong. I like this list. We go into top 4. We got Blackwings here, and this is an extremely aggressive Blackwing deck. I would just call this like Blackwing aggro, to be honest. I'm looking, of course, like we have the 3 Upstart for consistency, but we have maxing on basically every Blackwing we can. We have 3 Blizzard, 3 Bora, 3 Kalut, 3 Shura, 3 Sirocco, 3 Vayu. I mean, that's just insane. And then you have the 3 Greffers as well. So you have the turbo draws where you can just clock your opponent with Vayu. But you also just have the multiple Bora draws, and you're just going to be able to be as aggressive as possible. And then kind of, because we have the big monster count here on all the aggressive Blackwing cards, we're just playing the essential traps and 3 Icarus Attack, 2 Royal Oppression, Mirror Force, and Solemn Judgment. So I kind of like this, cutting some of your interaction to just be as aggressive as possible. I think sometimes decks like to fool around too much in Edison format, and this is just going to put people to the test. Like if you stumble, this deck is going to straight up kill you in a number of different ways. It's very aggressive, and I just think Blackwings is an aggro deck in general, but when you build it like this, your opponent can literally not stumble; they will die. And I just like putting people to the test in such a wide variety of a format that Edison is. You're not gonna. I just like to be as proactive as possible, and this is just a game plan that I can get behind in this type of a format. So I love this very aggressive and linear Blackwing list here. And then we have, of course, my staple, if you guys know me from the channel, 3 DD Crow, 2 Cyber Dragon, the staple for me. And then more interaction, which I like a lot. Of course, you have access to the deck Devi, but then the bottomlesses can come in. You still have access to the deep prisons, pulling the rug, and another Light Mirror again. So Lightsworns look like they got hated out this weekend, but a lot of I like that you still have access to the interaction, which is very good. And then standard extra deck, it looks like. So awesome list. I like how aggressive this player went. Then we have 3rd place. We have Vayu Turbo. I like this deck kind of like coming back into fruition. I think some people were trying to be a little bit too aggressive with the Vayu Turbo, going up to like 3 Greffers and just trying to turbo, but I like it more as like this like mid-rangey aggro deck that this list is sort of displaying. I'm not sure how I feel about Elfin. I've liked it in the past. I've cut it. But I think this list looks really solid in general. I like the 2 Kaias. That's usually what I run. 1 Hamster, good. 3 Raikou. Just being able to interact with the opponent is really strong with Raikou. And then also just being like an aggro mid-range deck. You know, you still have access to all the great cards. You still have Dark Arm Dragon. You still have Brain Control. You have all the good trap cards. You get to play two Deep Prisons, 2 Royal Oppressions. Very strong here. And another player playing the 1 Bottomless. So interesting choice there. It's interesting to look for those type of patterns. But I like this a lot, just like a aggro mid-range value deck. In the sideboard, we have DD Crows, we have the Fossils, Soul Release, very interesting. DD Crow and Soul Release, so maybe he prefers some in different matchups over the other. But access to Deck Devi, of course, strong, and another more Light Mirror. So a lot of people hating out on the light decks of the format, and extra deck looks pretty standard, as most of them do, and yeah, I kind of just like this list. Very standard. I like the Dust Tornado main deck. Make sure your clock goes through, get the Greffer into play, and alongside an Armed Wing, and kind of just kill your opponent. No upstarts, makes it easier to kill your opponent in that way, and yeah, list looks pretty solid to me. Then we have second place here, and it looks like a more controlling version of Blackwings. So we still have 3 Bora, which is aggressive, but we have 3 Blizzard, as well as 2 copies of Dark Eruption. So I think he was really trying to maximize on getting the value out of all of his cards and kind of just really honing in on the Blackwind effects. I could see this deck trying to set up Blizzard into a Blackwing out of the graveyard, and then trying to get value out of like Icarus attack and things like that. Just trying to grind out the opponent, and having access to 2 Dark Eruption is really interesting. It's kind of like a toolbox of riches. You know, it could be like a Kalut or a Blizzard, and I think, or a Gale. You know, a lot of interesting options that the card gives you. I don't know if I would play 2. I think it could be a little bit cloggy in the early game, and if you ever draw 2, it might just be like a straight loss depending on the rest of your hand. But I think in the late game, it's just going to be awesome just having access to multiple Blackwing effects, like whichever one you need for the situation, is just an awesome toolbox to have. Other than that, I like the 3D Prison. Seems really good in this metagame. 3 Icarus, of course. The Royal Oppression just locking out all these other combo decks. Very strong, clean 3 upstarts. I like when we can play 3 upstart. Only 1 value because it's more of like a controlling list. In the sideboard, we got Soul Release again. Deck Devi, of course. More Mirror. Maybe I should put more Light Mirror in my sideboards. And 3 Pulling the Rug. So fairly standard. And yeah, that was the second place deck. And we go on to the winning deck. We have first place playing Vayu Turbo, another Vayu deck. So pretty awesome here, and this one looks fairly similar to the last one. Still the 2 copies of Caius. We have 3 Raikou, 1 Hamster, 1 DD Crow in the main. That's a really interesting choice. I like that a lot, actually, in this list. I think it's really important to just try and establish a clock and then like have interaction, whether it be DD Crow, Royal Oppression, Bottomless, just getting the back row, getting the monsters out of the way and just beating down. And the fact that you're like a normal mid-range deck that can also just have that insanely fast clock with Dark Greffer is what makes this deck very powerful. And I think a card like DD Crow just kind of adds to the interaction that this deck can have. Having fast clock plus interaction is just one of the most powerful things you can do in any format, in any game, to be honest. And I think that this deck really sort of displays that as it's like a mid-range deck that can be very aggressive, and it wants to interact in the right ways. He's playing all the cards that seem to be very good in this metagame. We're talking about Bottomless, we're talking about Prison a lot, Oppression, just a lot of Oppression decks in this top 8. Very, very strong card there. And in the sideboard, we've been going more on the interaction and the hate cards. We have the 2 copies of Vanity's Fiend, very interesting. Second DD Crow, 2 Cyber Dragons, Thunder King, and Kaiku. I think Kaiku's kind of underplayed. I like that card a lot. 1 Lightning Vortex, 1 Deck Devi, and then again more mirrors in the sideboards over here. So people not wanting to play against Lightsworns, but This deck just looks extremely solid. It looks like a value turbo list of old, not really going up to 3 Greffers and upstarts and like trying to super maximize. Just looking to be like an interactive deck that can put a fast clock on the opponent. And I think the 1DD Crow just, like, to me, it's just like it kind of encapsulates the whole like idea of this deck. Just want to be interacting in different ways, but also just like not committing too much. It's just a card you can have in hand while you're just clocking your opponent and shutting them off from a Treeborn Frog, and like not being able to Kaiish your Dark Greffer to get like an additional activation on the following turn just seems like something that's insane. And in game one, I think that's just having that is going to be like a big advantage in a lot of matchups, even just as a one of for this style of deck. And so that is the top 8 analysis of RBET4, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you guys want me to do these videos in the future. I really like talking about decks and seeing exactly what people are playing. Shout out to everyone who was running the event. I think it's so awesome. I always try to flick it on and watch it live. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the decks in the comments below. And without further ado, this is Dan V from SSG, signing out.